The Colts got a much-needed win today against the Bears, and they did it despite their quarterback laying an egg for most of the game. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first post-game listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. What's up, everybody? This is Jake Arthur and Zach Hicks of HorseshoeHuddle.com. I'm reporting to you live from Lucas Oil Stadium after the Colts got a big old 21-16 win over the visiting Bears today, finally ending the 0-2 skid. At the beginning of the season, it feels like the sky is falling when you have consecutive losses because you don't have wins to really hang your hat on at the beginning of the season. So we know they're capable of winning. We know the defense is capable of stepping up against an offense that has been as bad as they were defensively the first 2 weeks. And we know they can win despite the offense being pretty bad for a lot of the game, at least the quarterback play. So let's go through a little bit of housekeeping. There were some injuries of note at the end of the game, like boom, 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 3 consecutive plays. There were injuries. Kenny Moore, hip, Kwity Paye, quad, and Dallas Flowers left as well, but I never heard an injury designation for him. So that is 2 of your 3 starting corners at a group that already was banged up, and one of your starting defensive ends when you just put DeForest Buckner on IR this week. But for what it's worth, I did ask Kwity if he was cool in the locker room after, and he seemed good. So that is my super official medical diagnosis there. But no, hopefully they came out unscathed, and these are just things that maybe cost these guys a day or 2 of practice this week. But man, big win today, Zach. Obviously, NFC win. It's not weighted the same. But when you consider they would have been 0-3 without this win, I think it was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, for sure. It's always great to get in the win column. And honestly, I think it's good for the Colts and Anthony Richardson to see a W put up there in a game where he wasn't good whatsoever. You know, like maybe that can convince him a little bit to relax on some of these plays that he's making, especially that one in the red zone. I mean, even the Pittman overthrow we'll talk about in a second, like relax a little bit, man. Like you don't have to put everything on your shoulders on every single play. This isn't Dan Mullen's Florida team. You don't have to be Superman on every single play. So yeah, I do think that it's good to get in the win column. Obviously your playoff chances go from like 0.1% if you lose this one up to like 10% or something with the win here, or like 20%, whatever it is. So yeah, good to get in the win column. And, we have a lot to talk about with the quarterback, obviously, but just getting that win is obviously a big monkey off the back for this team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you of course would have wanted to see Anthony have a big bounce back performance, but I think you saw positives from just about everywhere else you were looking. Pass rush got back on track. They didn't even get a hit last week. Again, totally different situation with what the Packers were trying to do with Malik Willis, but you didn't get a hit. You never want to see that. They got back to, 4 sacks and numerous hits otherwise. So that was good. The run defense was great. They allowed like 2.3 yards per carry or something like that. So the defense really stood up. After not having an interception the first 19 games of his career, Jalen Jones came up with 2 today. So that was good. But yeah, Anthony is kind of he had a very on-brand stat line here. 10 of 20, which is obviously 50%, 167 yards, which is an 8.4 YPA. I looked after the Alec Pierce 44-yard reception, and he was like 4 of 8 with a 14-something YPA, and I was like, oh God, this is very Anthony. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions, both of them pretty rough. He was sacked once, passer rating of 39, and an ESPN QBR of 17.5. So not great. Let's dive into where do you even want to start with this one? Because there was some good later in the game, but largely it was not a very good performance to write home about.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, 22-year-old starter, the youngest in football still. I mean, we're going to say that a lot this year. And it was by far and away his worst start as a professional. One of his worst starts dating back to even his college career. Just a really, really bad showing from him. And it's a combination of a young quarterback who the game is too fast for him right now and also just doing too much. I mean, the first interception is very much you're doing too much there. Just throw the ball away. Look, Shane Steichen took fault for that interception because the play just wasn't there and it was a bad play call, which it was a very bad play call and a very bad moment there. But Richardson made the mistake worse by trying to loft it over 5 defenders in the end zone to Ashton Doolin. The ball gets tipped and it's an easy interception. Like, that's just something that can't happen. And that's, again, just a young quarterback doing a little bit too much. The second interception to Michael Pittman Jr., again, he's beating the blitz by using his legs, getting out of the pocket. He has all this space in front of him. You can easily run for a 20, 30, 40-yard gain because you beat the blitz with your legs. But he sees Pittman breaking open behind, doesn't set his feet, overthrows it over the head of Pittman, and it's an easy interception. He's just doing too much out there, man. Sometimes you got to take the easy play. Sometimes the easy decision is not the fun decision. Maybe it's a throwaway or the scramble. Use your legs a little bit rather than forcing this 30-yard pass down the field or forcing this throw to the back of the end zone when it's simply not there. So it's just things like that. And then you get to the other misses too on top of that, the third down misses to Josh Downs and Michael Pittman Jr. and the one to Alec Pierce in the game where he sailed over his head. It's just, these are things that cannot happen for him to be a successful quarterback. Now, again, he gets some grace. He's a 22-year-old quarterback, still learning the ways of being and look, he just hasn't had many reps as a quarterback in general. So he gets that grace. But if you see starts like this continue, next week, the week after that, and we see a whole season of starts like this, then you have to reconsider some things and really change some things. I think Shane Steichen can be better for his young quarterback. But ultimately, these are things that, like, some of these plays are really elementary plays that he cannot be missing. But yeah, the hope is as the game slows down a little bit for him and as he learns to relax a little bit, I think that's really the big thing right now is he just panics too much in the moment. And it's a weird thing for a quarterback who is really good at negating sacks. Like, he doesn't take many sacks. He gets out of pressure a lot. He's really calm within the pocket in terms of how he moves in it. But it's like when he sees a receiver open, he panics. Yeah. It's like the panic isn't there when the pressure is closing in or when he needs to throw the ball down the field. He doesn't panic, but he panics when he has a play that's easy to be made. It's like the easy plays freak him out, So once the game slows down for him and it becomes a pitch and catch situation, and once he trusts, everything that's going on in front of him, I think we'll see a better Anthony Richardson. But as of right now, these last 2 starts have just simply not been good. And if we see, more of this obviously going forward, then there's some big issues. But again, 22-year-old starter, you're going to see this a lot for a guy who just hasn't played that much football in his career, hasn't played a lot of football in the last year even. So, you live with it for now. But again, it's kind of something where it's like, I'm glad they got the win despite of him today, because maybe it can show him that you don't need to make the freak out plays like that, like, calm down, make the play. Like, if you have to scramble, it's fine to scramble. Like, it's perfectly fine to scramble. If you have to throw the ball away, it's perfectly fine to throw the ball away. Just don't turn these into back-breaking turnovers and mistakes. And that's what we saw in this one. So, once the game slows down, I'm not too uncomfortable, or I'm not too scared of what's going to happen with him. But right now, yeah, the Colts are going to have to bear with a lot of these growing pains because he's going through some of those growing pains right now.
Yeah, and I know there is a section of the Colts fan base that wants Joe Flacco. I know that.
No,
I'm just saying you're just going to have to be patient because the way for this all to become not a big deal for Anthony and for him to settle down is going to be more experience. That's just what it's going to take. Like, you're just going to have to live with the lumps because they're coming. And that, like you said, he basically got thrown in from like a handful of college games to, wow, you're here at the pinnacle of the sport of football. It's just going to take some experience to desensitize him to those things.
We are watching an NFL right now where the most successful quarterbacks in the league at this current moment are all these reclamation projects, these former first-round picks that are going to other teams and going into their 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th year, whatever it's going to be, and figuring stuff out. These former first-round picks. So yes, you are going to give Richardson his grace if you're actually a smart team, even if it looks terrible this year. Like if it looks awful this year, you still give him all of this year, and you probably give him next year as well. You're not getting anywhere anytime soon with Joe Flacco. Like even if Flacco say gets you to the playoffs this year and Richardson doesn't, where does that get you? You have a guy who's old,
like you accomplish.
Right. Flacco's old enough to be my dad. Like he's not doing anything for you if he's your starter. So like unless Flacco guaranteed you a Super Bowl, you don't ever go to Flacco. You don't even somewhat consider it. And Flacco does not guarantee you a Super Bowl. Like that's not happening. So yeah, no, Richardson's your guy. You live with the growing pains. We'll have a more detailed breakdown of Richardson's play tomorrow on our Richardson review episode. But yeah, not a great day from him whatsoever. But that's what this season is for. It's to see him go through these lumps and bruises and hopefully he can come out better at the end of it.
Yeah, this is a test of everybody's fandom this year. Like the Colts haven't changed the game. We all knew that this was going to maybe be like this. It's just tough to swallow when you see it for a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, you just got to kind of stay on that horse, so to speak. And
you guys got through the Matt Ryan season. You guys can absolutely get through a 22-year-old quarterback season. So you guys got this. I promise you got this.
Let's move on to other stuff because a lot of other stuff outside of Anthony went pretty well. So we're going to talk about the offense first and foremost and what really stood out to us there. Football is finally back, which means it's time to order your favorite game day food, snacks, and drinks on DoorDash without missing a play. For me, DoorDash is a lifeline. It essentially has been since the pandemic. It's a very regular part of my diet now. And honestly, I think it's a really great way to finally, like, we all have a list of like local restaurants and stuff. Well, you tell your significant other, I'll add it to the list. We'll go there sometime. But you don't always feel like leaving the house, getting ready, doing all that stuff. It's a production to leave the house and go somewhere. Most of these places are on DoorDash now. So I think DoorDash is a great way to, find out new local flavors around your community, but also like college game days and pro game days. If you go places and watch games, like you cannot always count on what your buddies are going to have at their house. So DoorDash really comes in clutch, and it's not just food either. Like if you need something from the convenience store or whatever, they have got you covered. All you got to do is use promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time offer. Terms apply. The promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 or older to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. All right, so when we're talking offensive success in this one, Zach, we'll start with obviously the line. Anthony was only sacked once. Really great showing from them. I thought the blocking from everyone, not just the line, like all 10 other players outside of Jonathan Taylor blocked their tails off for him. He, of course, went over 100 yards again, 23 carries for 110 yards. That's just under 5 yards a carry. 2 touchdowns, one of them being a nice 29-yarder. Kind of vintage Jonathan. And then he also had a 25-yard reception. So another big day from Jonathan Taylor. And I think this, as long as they can do it, is the recipe for their offense throughout the season.
Yeah, the Colts showed today, because again, this is the first time that Anthony Richardson's not trailed by 2 scores in the fourth quarter in his NFL career. So great job, everybody, getting him to this for the first time. But I do think the Colts showed today that they are a tough team to beat in the fourth quarter if they have a lead. Because in the fourth quarter, that's when Richardson fully becomes the running quarterback that we want him to be. Like he doesn't hold anything back in the fourth quarter when it comes to running. The Colts are more willing to use him as a runner in the fourth quarter because those are more of your gotta have it moments. And then Jonathan Taylor, just the vision, the power, the speed. I mean, that first touchdown run that Taylor had today, that was vintage Jonathan Taylor. Like I thought I was watching 2021 Jonathan Taylor. I was like, oh, he's playing the Buffalo Bills right now. That's what it looked like on that run right there. And, it kind of is like a throwback to 2021 where the quarterback was struggling. The passing game wasn't much of a threat. They knew the Colts are running the ball in the fourth quarter, but it didn't matter because Jonathan Taylor was just playing out of his mind. He had multiple runs in this game where, again, it didn't have to be the speed. It could also just be the vision or the patience where I'm like, this is why you pay him. This is why you're paying Jonathan Taylor. So I think the one that stood out to me the most, I think it was his best run of the day, actually, besides the touchdown, was the one where they ran to the left side on their touchdown, other touchdown drive. They ran to the left side and he's hesitating behind, I think it was Nelson or Fries or someone, and he's bouncing back and forth multiple times to get that linebacker to bite one way, and then he breaks back out to the left sideline and runs up the sideline. I think he got pulled after that play to give him a break, and then Sermon scored. But just that kind of run right there, that kind of patience, it's like what kids idolized in Le'Veon Bell when Le'Veon Bell was a superstar in the league. So just a fantastic day from Jonathan Taylor. And I think, look, if the Colts really wanted to, if the only care for the Colts this year was winning football games, the recipe that they brought out in that fourth quarter of using Anthony Richardson in the QB run game, using Taylor a lot in the ground game, and then occasionally mixing in some throws, I think that would be the path to victory. Now, again, this year is more so about developing Anthony Richardson. You're going to get him more in traditional dropbacks and see what he can do with that. Steichen's very much going with baptized by fire with him. But I think when the game is on the line, the Colts got to have it, and they have a lead or it's a close game in the fourth quarter. Doing what they did today with, again, leaning on QB run game, leaning on Taylor, that's the recipe right there, because that's what this team is built for. They're built in the trenches. They're built on Jonathan Taylor's legs and Richardson's ability to run. And they're going to be a tough team to put away if they have a lead in the fourth quarter. It's all about just getting to that fourth quarter with a lead. But we even saw on that final drive, it's like, the Colts bungled an opportunity to take away a timeout from the Bears, essentially, by not returning the kickoff. It didn't matter because you couldn't stop Jonathan Taylor behind Quentin Nelson on that pull play. That nobody's ever been able to stop that play since Shane Steichen came to Indy. So fantastic day from the offensive line. Fantastic day from Jonathan Taylor. Really, really great to see that. And hey, back-to-back weeks where that's been the case with those two. So even with Richardson struggling, we've seen the offensive line and Taylor really step up in the ground game. Hopefully that continues the rest of the year and the Colts have a top 5 rushing offense.
And off of that, obviously success in the run game breeds, big plays in the pass game because the defense obviously has to pay attention to that. It only took one reception for old Alec to lead the whole team in receiving once again.
He's had a great year. Man, he has had a great season. And today today kind of showed the value of that down second season he had last year, where he had to be more of a non-factor in the passing game and had to block more and had to do a lot of the dirty stuff. Because we saw today, he got the one shot down the field, made his big play, and then he became just this fantastic wide receiver blocker the rest of the game. He was awesome in the block.
He had one or two blocks where I was like, oh God, chef kiss. That was good.
Yeah. And you're just watching this being like, this is a player you can never take off the field. You really can't, because you get his threat in the deep ball game. You get the times that he is targeted in the deep passing game. He's gotten better over the intermediate this year, catching more balls in intermediate. Oh, and on rundowns, he's a great blocker, a fantastic asset there. Alec Pierce through 3 games has made himself indisposable to this offense. He's been the most consistent pass catcher. He's been a fantastic blocker, both on screens and in the run game. And I couldn't be more impressed with the young players play. Hats off to Alec Pierce this season for everything he's done through 3 games. And hopefully he continues it and it leads to more success in Indy for years to come from him. But man, I couldn't be more impressed with Alec Pierce through 3 weeks. Fantastic, fantastic start to the season for him.
Yeah, they've got a really good mix in that receiver room. I think all of the main contributors could have a reason to be frustrated at times this season. But they really are just all rooting for each other. I joked with Pittman after the game in the locker room. I was like, Alec's not exactly the type of guy that's going to hang over everybody's head that he's leading the team in receiving yards every week. And he's like, nah. Pittman he's like, I could not be more proud of him. People were saying some weird stuff about him last year, with us included. I mean, we weren't the ones saying that he was terrible. We understood he had utility, but I mean, having, staying the course and just doing what you're asked to do and doing it super well and just never really getting detracted, regardless of the fact that he did not fit into the passing game with Matt Ryan and with Gardner Minshew. He just didn't. But he's finally got that quarterback now, and we're finally seeing what a guy like that can bring to the table when he meshes well with the guy who is in charge of delivering the ball. So great stuff from him. And I wanted to mention a quick, footer on Josh Downs. Took him a second. He had that first quick drop, but I thought he settled in well to exactly what we want to see from him. There was one play, I think it was just like a 7-yard reception along the right sideline. I was like, my God, Anthony took a layup. Let's go. And it was just a little play to Josh Downs. I was like, this is going to work its way back into the offense pretty well once they get the rhythm again.
Yeah, again, I want to see more of that. I know the drop early happened, but outside of that, like keep getting the ball to Josh Downs, get Richardson getting in that rhythm early. I thought Pittman had a good bounce back game too. I think, he made the most of his targets in this one. Honestly, it felt like a lot of guys showed up in this one. It was just Richardson did not have a good day and was over aggressive and just overthinking a lot of things. But you know what? This is what we said going into the season, that Richardson was going to have his highs and lows. We need the rest of the roster to pick him up. This game was the perfect example of the rest of the roster picking him up, from offense to defense. The rest of the roster really did pick him up in this one, which that's all you can ask for out of a roster carrying a 22-year-old quarterback as their starter.
Yeah. And then enormous kudos coming up next to a defense that rightfully for us to say has been terrible, but stepped up and really won this game for the Colts today. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you got that lizard braid thing where you just got to play your bet. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Today, FanDuel had the Colts as 1.5-point favorites. Cha-ching. They had the over-under at 43.5. I think everyone on earth probably hit the under on that. So congratulations. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, so defense. Let's go ahead and just give a nice round of applause, especially to our man Taven Bryan, who right away broke through for a stack. So I'll say just a quick thing on Taven Bryan. And it truly is the statement of giving credit when credit is due. It's like we said this last week. It's really not his fault that he's been kind of played out of position in a manner that does not accentuate his strengths whatsoever. He even agreed with that when he spoke to Nate Atkins in the Indy Star last week. If you guys didn't read that yet, it's a great piece that Nate put out.
Fantastic article.
The other day.
Yeah.
Taven understands that it's not going to look great when you play him at nose tackle and when he's getting all these snaps and is trying to be DeForest Buckner. But he came through today starting at 3-tech. He got a sack, and I didn't notice a single time where I was like, yeah, Taven, yeesh. Like, I felt the whole defensive front really played well, and they used an enormous rotation again, and there really weren't many weak links out there.
Yeah, I will say this. I don't like being negative about players. Mm-hmm. I know it's part of the game, and it's part of our job to be negative at times, and I maybe went too far in times with my jokes about Taven Bryan this past week, but it became a bit, and that's just how the nature of the business is. But every single time negative about a Colts player, I hope that I'm wrong. I beg that I am wrong every time I have a negative take about a Colts player, because I want these guys to all succeed. These are real human beings. So even when I take these bits too far and joke too much, and I'm not trying to say right now that I'm completely wrong about Taven Bryan. He's a superstar or anything, but I am very happy to see him have a good game. Very good game from Taven Bryan. Really shored up that run defense, had a nice sack in there, and wasn't a liability in any regard. So very happy to see that from him. And I hope it continues. I hope it is the pie in my face of this entire season, is that I even dare to make that a bit and joke around about it.
I hope that you crow if it means that the Colts are passable with Buckner on IR.
Anytime I say anything negative about a Colts player, I want their kicker to never miss a kick. Now I'm still gonna laugh when they miss one because I hate kickers, but you know how it is. But no, this was a great game for a lot of players on defense who have kind of been doubted or have struggled and stuff. Jalen Jones is the guy we really got to shout out in this one. 2 interceptions in this game, including that second one, which is one of the most impressive plays I've seen from a Colts defensive back since the Kenny Moore one-hand interception against the Raiders maybe a couple years ago. Like the toe tap on the sidelines, the ball tracking. And this is from a corner who last year, we all could agree that he played fine, But we were like, okay, is he going to have the ball skills? Is he a Rock Ya-Sin type player where it's like he'll stay in front of guys and he'll make some pass breakups, but he won't really come away with those big plays? But today took advantage of a really bad Caleb Williams throw to the on the spot route or whatever on that third down. Took great advantage of that. And then the second one, again, one of the more impressive plays of ball tracking I've seen from a DB in Indy in a long time. Really, really great kudos to Jalen Jones. I've always been a fan of Jalen Jones, but I didn't know he had the ball skills and the ball production like this. If he can continue this, like, let's go, baby. Let's make him cornerback one. But really good showing from him. And I'm glad because it wasn't the greatest start from him. And there's still some areas to clean up with him. Like his tackling technique needs a lot of work. There's a lot of times teams are throwing short of him on third downs and he's not making the play. But look, if you get the interception production, you can miss every tackle you ever try to make. If you're getting the interception production, that's what wins in today's football. So great game from Jalen Jones. Really happy to see it from him.
And discussing the human element again, like I've talked to Jalen a handful of times, in his year and change being here, and he's not a super expressionable guy, but I've quite literally never seen him happier and more lit up than in the locker room after today when I talked to him. It was really good to see, and that's a confidence thing. Like a lot of these guys, when they accomplish something for the first time in the NFL, it checks something off on a box for them in their head, and they're just able to play free from there. Again, 19 games without a pick before, and now he has 2 in this same game. So not that there was ever a doubt in his mind that he could do it, but that's got to be a decent hurdle for him. And another guy who reached a first today and probably made the 1A, 1B defensive play of the game was Laiatu Latu doing literally exactly what the Colts drafted him to do, and that's close out games in the fourth quarter. So I think the Colts had a 5-point lead at that point. The Bears were inside their own 20-yard line. I think they were at their 18. First play of the drive, Latu just flies across the left end and strip sacks Williams. Big Grove recovers it. Game over from there. Colts call game. So that's exactly why the Colts drafted a guy like Latu.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was because he was so close on so many other plays in
there
this
was
game.
There was like 2 or 3 times where I was like, he's right there, he's got him, and Caleb Williams is incredibly slippery.
Yes, Caleb Williams is very like young Russell Wilson or like young Tony Romo, even with that spin that he has in the pocket. I know the Colts defensive ends have issues finishing plays. Like they've had this all year. They cannot finish guys for sacks at all. But like, oh my gosh, it felt even worse today. Caleb Williams was spinning out of everything. The Colts only had 4 sacks in this game. It feels like they should have had like 8 or 9.
Yeah, they had 4 sacks and 6 other hits, but they should have hit him a million times. He just happened to be able to squirm away from it.
Yeah, there was one in particular, I think it was like on a rollout where Latu did not bite on the rollout, and Williams got so low on his little spin move that Latu was juked out of his shoes. And it's like, Latu's right there on every single one of these rushes. If he's not hitting Williams, he's at least driving the left tackle into his lap. So it felt like it was a long time coming when that one finally came. But like you mentioned, man, they drafted him to be the closer. Like he was drafted that high to be the guy who can close out games, and getting that forced fumble at the end and just closing this one out like that. It was just a chef's kiss on a really strong day from him. Like it was a strong day from him without finishing plays. And then he gets that finisher like that essentially put the game away. And it's like, there we go. That's what we needed from you. Now, hopefully, like you said with Jalen Jones, where it's like getting the one interception gives you the confidence to make other plays. Maybe this is the confidence boost that Latu needed to finish other plays and get more sacks going forward and stuff. Because he's been close a couple times this year. Maybe this was the confidence booster he needed to be like, oh yeah, the NFL is not that much different from what I've been doing. Like I can do this at this level, and then he can just build from here.
I mean, he's got a good opportunity to stack games because Justin Fields can run better than any other quarterback. But how many times did he get sacked when he was with the Bears? I haven't seen his numbers with the Steelers, but they have Justin Fields next week.
They just lost Fatano too on IR, so one of their starting tackles.
Yeah, I mean they're going to have another positive matchup in terms of pass rush next week. So good opportunity to stack days.
Yeah, for sure. Some other guys to shout out though. Raekwon Davis, I thought had a really strong game in this one. I thought the 2 Colts linebackers stepped up in this one too. Like really, really good showing from both them, especially in the run defense. Zaire Franklin specifically said he needs to be better and called himself out. And when it comes to run defense,
today.
How many do you have?
15.
Yeah, he was all over the place out there. EJ Speed was out all over the place. Nick Cross was great in the tackling department. Coverage still needs some work, Nick, but as long as you're making tackles, I'm cool with you. I heard the Colts moved him to strong safety before the game too, is what the announcers were saying. I don't know if you heard that, Jake, but the announcers said that Nick Cross is now the strong safety because of how he played the last couple weeks at in the box and
Makes
making
sense.
tackles. So there you go. The thing that you asked in the pregame.
Yeah, so you and I talked about that Friday. Like, would you make the switch to make Julian the free and just keep Nick down? Because they play better that way. They both do.
Yeah. And then Adetomiwa Adebore, really awesome sack. He beat a Colts legend on that sack too, Matt Pryor. Matt Pryor, really, really clean pass rush win from Adetomiwa, and you love seeing that speed and power that he has. He's going to be a good pass rusher in this league. He's got to be a little bit better in the run defense so he can get on the field, but really, really good rep from him. Overall, just a strong day from the defense. Like, it could have been better. Like, they had some coverage miscues and a couple of deep balls that you don't want to allow against a team like this, but really strong day from the defense. And, I said coming into this, I didn't have confidence in their defense, regardless of who they were playing, because they looked so bad the first 2 weeks. To completely flip that around. And again, I know the opponent was not the greatest opponent, obviously, but to completely flip that around and change the narrative in week 3 is a very promising sign. Now, do it against a better offense and we'll, hopefully have more confidence going forward. But I'm at least happy they could do this against somebody, because the last 2 weeks were not very inspiring. So kudos to the defense that we were, basically crying about on here in last week's post-game show. Kudos to the defense for making this less emotional in this episode here.
Yeah, honestly, this gives me a little bit of positivity going into next week against the Steelers. Like the Steelers and Bears really are not all that far off. You could compare them plenty of ways. I mean,
better coached.
Yeah, for sure. I'll dive in more with it with Chris Carter on Thursday for the crossover, but I do feel good going into this one. I figured the Colts could beat the Bears in this one. I picked them to win, but I did not feel great about it because they weren't capitalizing on their advantages in the first couple games, but they finally did it in this one. And I think when you can win and your quarterback literally has like the worst game of his career, like that's you hate to see that with your quarterback, but you feel great about the rest of the team with that. Yeah.
And again, hopefully the quarterback calms down a little bit because of that going forward. But look, hey, I picked against the Colts this week and it finally worked for the Colts to get a win. So the rest of the season, I'll never pick the Colts to win and I'll be the negative Nancy on this show.
Can I toot my own horn again, by the way? So
sure,
in week 1, I was 1 point. I missed my point prediction by 1 point. Did it again today. I said 20-16 Colts.
Is that what I thought? I thought you said 21-13, but yeah, 20.
2 out of 3 weeks now. I'm just a point off of my predictions.
All right, you'll close that gap by the end of the season. I have full faith in you there.
Most likely.
All right, we want to thank you guys, though, for making Locked On Colts your first listen today, your first post-game listen today. Now, if you're a second listen, go listen to the new Locked On NFL Now with 2 shows every day. First, the Madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you guys don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on Twitter. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We love you guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.